Excellent. Hello, everyone. This is Form 5 incorporating Djem into Jedi Realism. So, quick intro about myself. My name is Darcy. I'm Jedi Knight, counselor at the Jedi Conclave. Been around since 2016, and I've studied Djem like philosophically and like tactically. By the end of this lesson, I'm hoping that you guys will go forward with an understanding about Djem and the Jedi realist path, but also how to view the other fictional forms in a Jedi realist centric light. So, what is Djem? One of the Jedi maxims is peace through superior firepower when it comes to Djem. Also known as the way of the lesser krayt dragon or the perseverance form. Many believe it to be a form based on overpowering strikes, favoring strength over finesse. However, this form, by the time we see in the prequels, was 4,000 years old, and as such, it was a truly refined form. It wasn't about just strength. It, like many Jedi practices or belief, is something that like any Jedi practice or belief, is something that we can take and translate into reality. Of course, you could practice it with a lightsaber, as I have, but long have I held the belief that lightsaber forms are philosophy in direct action. So that you do, like, if you're doing it with in martial arts, you're doing the motion, but there's a philosophy behind it. You wouldn't be doing that motion without the philosophy behind it. So, what lessons can Djem teach us? So, yeah, there we go. To the next slide. So, misconceptions about Djem. It is not about power. The primary misconception is that Form 5 is based around power, but defaults to it meaning that power to mean physical strength and the ability to straightforwardly overpower your opponents. This I find is a very two-dimensional view on this very powerful form. On the example on the left, we see Ahsoka. Everyone thinks that she was an Ataru user. She was a Djem user. In a position of weakness, able to flip backwards, get into a position of strength where you can see that she's in a powerful low stance, both her sabers ready, and then would be able to attack. And otherwise she would not have survived that attack. She pulls back. Djem, according to Maestro of Bendu Lightsaber Combat, which is where I learned most of my lightsaber, is translated to perfect weapon. This is a reminder to the user that the lightsaber is merely an extension of the self. So to practice Djem, we must be able to use it without using a lightsaber. If you can't use Djem without a lightsaber, you don't deserve to be using it with a lightsaber. The form isn't about power in its traditional understanding, but more so about identifying power and weakness. So let's go over a couple examples.
Darcy?
Yes.
I'm so sorry to interrupt, but this meeting is being recorded as blocking your beautiful presentation.
My presentation's what, black?
Yeah.
Wait, what do you mean?
Oh, never mind. Thank you.
Is everything okay? Everyone can see it? Yeah?
Good. Thank you.
Okay. So I did put a lot of effort into all my slides. Cool. Examples of true Djem. Djem finds its strength in the ability to analyze and take advantage of weakness. In such, the skilled practitioner of Djem tackles the following in their own lives. Has to start at home. So first, you got to learn how to capitalize on your own strengths. If you don't know your own strengths, you're not going to be able to use strength at all. Taking advantage of opponent's weakness and knowing where and how to defend their own weak points. You have to know your own weakness in order to be able to either learn how to overcome them, learn how to shore them up, or learn how to defend them entirely because there's no other way for you to defend it. This is not only requires the ability to pick apart your opponent's level of ability, but how to apply their weakness to your advantage while also turning their strengths against them. So you have to know, like in say like a debate, knowing where somebody's strength is like what are their points of interest, what have they studied, stuff like that helps you know what you're going up against. A Djem practitioner wouldn't throw themselves into a ring not knowing anything about somebody, otherwise they're just going to get torn apart. But the Djem's true strength is found in the ability to be turned on to the wielder. It is the responsibility of the Djem practitioners to not only know how to use their strengths, but understand how their weaknesses can betray them and how their strengths can be rendered useless in varied scenarios. There are many scenarios that I am useless in. Don't come to me about religion. I will just tell you don't. Yeah, you want to go to another Jedi that maybe views religion in a different light. It becomes a call to train to continue to be no. It becomes a call to train to continue to be your. Why did I write the sentence like this? To be your stand even when being able to stand even when at a disadvantage. Next slide, please. So how Jemso translates into Jedi realism. The quote I've used here is a sense of justice is continuous with the love of mankind. Jemso is known as a battlefield form. So you'd go out there, you'd sort of be the center of like what's going on. You don't want people to get behind you. It's not a dueling form. It's a battlefield form. You want to get out there, be able to deflect blaster bolts in fiction, be able to defend your allies, be able to move people from point A to point B. Basically, in practical terms, it's the tank. It is most well-rounded to be out in the field, taking action, ensuring safety, and tackling the regular threats out there. So our more strategic and support brethren could focus on the bigger goals. So like an example would be over at Jedi Church, how not all the moderators are always in the forefront, but they're always in the back end helping manage decisions. So it may seem like the ones that are in the forefront are making all the decisions. We're not. Those are like the battlefield ones. They're out in the front, handling things as they happen, and then bringing it back to people who are better, like that step away to be able to make a calm, rational decision. You don't need to be the person to make the decision. You just got to be the one to manage the chaos that's going on until the situation can be resolved. But the most important aspect is that a Jedi must align their views. Why did I write there like that? Stupid. Must align their actions with this love of mankind. Essentially, act to better the world, not needlessly tear it down. It's one of the things with Djem is because people view it as a power-based form, they think it's just about tearing people down. It's not. It's about knowing how to like manage, hold things together. In learning to find and exploit weaknesses, we can find where a student needs training, find faults on our own training, and come to the aid of others by quickly, effectively, and wisely coming to the aid of another. I put wisely in there because I think it's important to know, number one, where your own limits lie. If you're going to rush to help somebody and it might make the situation worse, maybe hold back for 5 minutes. So let's go over some examples of where these things could come in. So example number one, the teacher observes. The Jedi in fiction worked with Padawan learners. This type of training relationship was close quarters and wasn't just about reading and writing lessons. It was often about observing each other for a twofold reason. The master served as the example and did their utmost to show their student how to operate, how Jedi operate and behave. It's basically a job shadow. They're there, the student's there to learn, they observe, and they learn from that example. But of course, this example is called the teacher observes. And the student served by allowing the master to observe and correct. The student observed by allowing the master to observe the correct errors in the apprentice's ways, so they would be better prepared for being a knight themselves. Sorry, I get a little tied up in my own words. But this also means the teacher observes their own flaws and works to ensure their student is better than they are. So one example that we have here in the GIF, Ahsoka is known for her two-blade style, but a lot of people don't realize that the second blade was not her decision. She originally had her first, and then 1 year Anakin realized, listen, this isn't working out for you, especially if you want to continue with that reverse grip style. I've made you a second lightsaber. So the second hilt he made, the crystal she attuned. So that's why it's a little bit different, but it's the same sort of style as her original. So her having two was a result of Anakin, her master, looking at her form and going, here's where we can make you better. This will make you better with blaster deflection, because that's where I'm seeing you fail. So that's one example. Another example would be Qui-Gon and Kenobi's time together. Qui-Gon, excellent Jedi, but since he had issues operating within an order, being like, sort of rough edge, the council didn't really trust him all that much. It prevented him from doing greater work alongside the Jedi Council. Just as Kenobi said, it's like, well, you could be on the council if you want. And he's like, yeah, but me. And me, I get it. Kenobi, in that regard, exceeded him by being able to operate within the council and while still being able to stand up for his beliefs. He, of course, had beliefs that were inspired by his own master and over time his own apprentices. However, he was able to maintain that level of calmness while able to operate within a council that otherwise might be frustrating for him. That's where he grew beyond. Example number 2, the ceaseless cycle. So for the teacher, one can quickly grow through their ability to see where one might grow through training. It is important for a teacher to turn that ability on themselves regularly so that they may be better able to better themselves and serve as a better example to their students and learn from their failures. So an example I'm giving here is Khal Darak, one of my favorite Jedi ever. If I'd ever gone bald, I would be getting his facial tattoos and horns. In this fight, his apprentice throws him her lightsaber. So he's using his normal saber and a saber staff in tandem while also being able to still call upon the Force in the heat of battle. This is a master that went over and over again in all the situations to learn where his weaknesses were, which of course ended up being in like these overpowering fights where he was able to control the situation still. So another example also featuring Kenobi would be within his final duel with Maul on Tatooine. Maul made the blunder of using the same move where he ended Kenobi's the same move that he used to kill Qui-Gon years and years before. So the Kenobi had this thing where he was able to recognize these types of patterns and he was able to train against it. He also realized that at that point, when his first duel against Maul, he was an Ataro user, but he realized there was flaws in this that system. And he realized, I'm going to go and learn Sarisu instead so that he can work on defense, because he realized his master did not have enough defense and therefore died. As a result, as such, a teacher must be able to lead by example, showing that they are also working on themselves and advancing as Jedi, always stepping ahead of their students, something for them to catch up to and grow beyond. You can't serve as an example from the rear. Just not how it's going to work. So I do see sometimes it's like getting to night is a huge undertaking. The trick is continuing afterwards without anybody pushing you, without any training master coming and poking you and seeing if you're doing your lessons. You still got to do it. So, quick old discussion. If you're a student, have you ever experienced types of weaknesses based on assessment of your skills, where like somebody looks at you and says, listen, this is where you're messing up. This is where you need to grow upon. If you're a teacher, like if you actually have an apprentice right now, what subjects that you have tackled to shore up your personal weak points? If anybody wants to speak, you can raise your hand.
I mean, sometimes some of us have issues with anybody wanting to say anything to us. I don't know if anybody else has that problem, but sometimes your name gets really big and up there and people don't think that they can say anything to you. And then there are other people that, because of how they respond to others, no one wants to say anything to them because they're just afraid of it either falling on deaf ears or being backlash coming out to them. Just some thoughts.
It's very true. Sometimes, like, I'll get people messaging me and they're like, "Oh, I'm so sorry for bothering you." And they'll say it's like, "Oh, I thought you were like some sort of out there being," and I'm like, "No, I'm just some loser that works like in a hotel. Like, come talk."
You are not a loser for working in a hotel. I do staffing for hotels. Trust me, you are not a loser.
Exactly. But it's like sometimes if it can feel like that, where it's like it feels like a personal shortcoming because because I create content on the scale that I do. Some people think that I'm bigger than I am, and I'm like, no, I'm small. Anybody else want to speak?
Small is good.
Small is good.
You will believe me. I'm so happy in my small little place where I can do my small little things, make maybe one person happy in my life. I don't know. How big do you want to be?
Exactly. Sometimes it's like, is it even worth being big?
It can get confusing. It can get you can get responsibilities that you're not ready for.
Well, as I
Darcy,
keep
I'm
seeing you
thinking
put your hand
a,
up, do you want to say something?
I was just reacting to what other people were saying, like, oh, that's true. That's
Mhm.
true. Yeah.
Arash Soka, you said you wanted to say something?
Yes, please. Thank you. With Octagon, he would always push my buttons. In fact, it was very interesting. Because then he would do different things to see how I reacted. And then he would tell me about it and share his observations. And I think a Jedi mentor is supposed to push you. And they're supposed to mirror things too. And like the more I worked on things, like in particular, just like how I express myself or my anger at times or other stuff, like not taking things personally and like stuff, and just like attachment and stuff, or like being in the past, the more his demeanor changed. Like I believe that people sometimes mirror stuff, so you'll see yourself in your reality, your awareness to your reaction to that is about an awareness of you. So when I started learning the lessons, it's like the way I saw him changed. So it was kind of cool because, yeah. Yeah, I think that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Karen's next.
thank you.
Is that Carmen?
You just oh, excuse me. I am one of those whose name got too big and it was getting hard to listen to people. And I made some mistakes, hurt people, figured out that I was also hurt, stepped back for a while and said, okay, distance helps a little, but it's not helping enough. So I finally said, you know what? I think you need to go back to being taught because you're not doing what you need to do on your own. And that's why I am going through Sophia as a teacher to go through those shortcomings and get my life on straight and get a little physical strength. And yeah, have someone that I can just trust fully to watch me be vulnerable, because the higher up you go, the harder it is to be vulnerable to people because people start looking up to you. So yeah.
Yeah, well, it's basically you realize that like a weakness in your training, like a hole in your armor, and you've gone back and you're just like, okay, time to mend it. Sometimes that requires becoming the student again, because that's the advantage of having a master, like a training master. It's a person that can be objective. If a training master is not being like objective with you, you gotta find another master. They're too chummy. I believe, was it Sarah next? Yeah.
Yeah, buddy. I had several things pop into my head. And I forgot everything that I was gonna say. But I will say, kind of jumping off of Karen, who went through the same exact thing where my head got a little bit too big. I didn't realize that that's what was happening at the time. It wasn't until I started talking did I realize that people actually listened, and I was like, holy crap, for the first time people are actually listening. The one issue that I have with a lot of training orders, and this is not against any order in particular, I appreciate the teacher/student relationship. with that being said, I have a lot of the issues with trainers in particular that I don't want to say all of them. I'm not categorizing or generalizing. I'm just saying that generally. Wait, that didn't sound right, but you kind of jumped over myself on that one. It's dictatorship. And a lot of things with the Star Wars universe that worked, right? I mean, Star Wars came out in 1977. Yeah. Back then, it was a very authoritative approach to anything. And we find now the authoritative approach is not actually the proactive approach. Taking the team approach is actually better. And you're starting to see it somewhat in the school systems, where teachers are sitting back and they're like, okay, I'm not going to tell you what you need to do. I'm going to try to figure out where it is that you're struggling, and I'm going to try to help you overdo that struggling. So it's not, I'm going to tell you what to do and you're going to do it. It is the teaching aspect where I'm going to teach you, I'm going to guide you. I'm not better than you. My job is to help you better understand the subject at hand. And I kind of feel like the Jedi community is not there yet. We are very dictative. We are very, I'm going to tell you what to do and you're going to do it or else you're gone. And I think that that's a very, very wrong approach. And I think that it's because of that approach that we have too many leaders that are running around thinking that they know everything, and shame on anyone that questions them. So, yeah.
Thank you. Carmen, I believe you're next. Thank you for
Okay.
waiting.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Using a different earpiece this time. So not in the Jedi community, but actually in the dance community. I've been a student, I've been a teacher, I've been many things. And it's similar, I think, in the sense of, you know, yes, if you get too important, too big, people may be intimidated and not approach you with their questions. But what I find interesting, I've taken a break from teaching, and what I find interesting is to reflect and look at my own motivations, both as a student and as a teacher. And I know some teachers I felt were really good and really I connected with. And some teachers, or at least one in particular, I did not connect well with, even though she was internationally a well-respected forger of wonderful artists. And I have reflected on why. It was a personality conflict. And you go back and you think, what made me not the right student for her, or her not the right teacher for me? And this has been an interesting reflection to go back and reflect on myself, because truly we are only in control of ourselves. And then also to look at reflecting on myself as a teacher. Being a teacher is a calling where you have to be able to reveal yourself without fear and share your knowledge without restraint. You are giving and giving freely. And if you cannot open your heart and give without reservation, are you really teaching? Or are you just doling out little bits of what you wish to share and reserving the better parts for yourself? Perhaps out of fear of creating students better than yourself, which is sort of the opposite of what teaching is intended to be, kind of like a parent. You hope to raise people who exceed you. So this period of downtime and reflection has been really illuminating. And at the same time, I'm reflecting on, do I wish to teach again? And if so, am I now truly ready to open and share freely and create students who exceed me? What are the barriers to that? And have I addressed them? And if I have not, then no, I have no business teaching.
It's a hard thing to weigh yourself on, definitely, to be like, am I ready to be the teacher finally? It's like, who's ready? Like, who's ever ready? Eventually, you just got to take that step. And yeah, you never know. You might realize you're great at it. You like, who knows? Okie dokie. So we'll move on from there. Hey, go to the next slide. There we go. So I'm going to give you the risks of Djem So, because with great power comes great responsibilities. And if you don't maintain your responsibilities, you become Darth Vader with no arms or legs. So the quote I've used here is from Barack Obama. We lose ourselves when we compromise the very ideals that we fight to defend. And we honor those ideals by upholding them, not when it is easy, but when it is hard. So a prime example of this would be Anakin's fall to the dark side. He was a Djem So practitioner, probably one of the best out there. But it was never enough. He always had to be the best so he could protect those he loved. And that ended up with him sacrificing his ideals. He found his own faults constantly. And normally that would be enough to make a great teacher or a master. He viewed them as flaws, something that was evil, despicable, something that haunted him until it pushed him over the edge. He always wanted to save his wife. That was one of the most important things for him. But he also wanted to save Ahsoka. He would have done anything to save Kenobi. If any of them had been threatened, he would bend heaven and earth to make sure they were safe. But he was limited, and the temptation of greater power to be able to overcome those flaws apparently led to him destroying everything he stood for and him losing even himself. So the people he trying to save wouldn't recognize him as what he became. Another way this can manifest is the inability to turn it off when it comes to dealing with others. This is one of the things that I've personally struggled with as a Djem So practitioner, is I see faults, the flaws, the hypocrisies, and I just have to tackle them. I have to like go after them, be like, nope, this is wrong. And I can show them where it's wrong and how it's wrong. But I shouldn't have to. I shouldn't need to. But it's like, tick, I do it. And I always end up causing more issues as a result of doing that. So sometimes, like, you can see a flaw. Sometimes you just gotta be like, zip, I'm done. And it's not for me. So some exercises for Djem So if you decide you want to do practice this without a lightsaber. No lightsaber involved. No, like, you can just do this on your own time. The key to Djem So is to have keen insight and the ability to empathize. It is not just enough to know what a flaw is, but why it's there to begin with. So the exercises one can take away from this are twofold. So the first one I would recommend doing is training your Anja chakra, the third eye chakra. I do have a series of lessons working from ground chakra up to that. However, I'm not going to go into all that today. So I'm going to give you a quick exercise you can use. It won't open your chakra, but it'll give you an idea. It will help you take insight. For 7 days, does not need to be consecutive, but I would recommend keeping it under 14 days. Just observe an interaction. This could be in person. This can be online. Whatever. You can watch a podcast with multiple people on it. The trick is turn off your reaction and just pay attention to what's being said. Don't take into account the histories of the people. Don't take into account how long they've known each other or the political landscape behind it. Just look at what is being said directly at face value. Write it down as verbatim as you can and focus on what is being said. After the 14-day period, or however long it really takes you to complete this, I do recommend under 14 days to keep it fresh. Go back on your writings and meditate onto the why these things were said. By that point, you'll usually get separated enough from the original interaction that you'll be able to observe it with a clearer head. So that's your first one. That's the Anja third eye chakra training. Being able to recognize the why to things helps you realize where your own flaws are and why they exist. Secondly, training your mirror neurons. These are neurons in your brain that fire when you see something happen. Like if you see somebody doing a task, you're able to do it yourself. If you see somebody get hurt, you can feel it yourself as well. The more mirror neurons you have, the more empathetic you can become. So for this one, just observe someone. It could be somebody like your server at your restaurant. It could be a driver in a cab, be a family member, whatever. Allow yourself to mirror their emotions. You could do it literally, or you could just copy what they're doing, or you could just sort of just sit inside their own mind. Try to put yourself in their shoes for a moment. What are they seeing from their point of view? What are they feeling? Do they feel the blanket that they have draped over them? How are they seated on the couch? Stuff like that. Something to look into. So these are things that you could do yourself in your free time if you just so wanted to. I just thought I'd include that on there for you. In conclusion, we got through this a lot faster than I thought I would. My next class is a lot longer. So in conclusion, like most fictional Jedi concepts, these ideas can be translated into reality. This isn't just true for Jemso, but all forms and Jedi practices. Jemso isn't about strength, it's about weakness and how we address them. A lot of people won't address weakness because they think it's, well, just weakness. Got to capitalize my strengths. What do I know? Doesn't matter what you know. What matters is what your opponent knows. And if your opponent knows your weakness, you're going to lose. And how to compensate for them in other areas. You can and should be able to apply these lines of thoughts to other forms. So I'm just giving a Jemso example because that's what I specialize in. But what form do you use? Something to ask yourself. And how can you use it to shape yourself as a Jedi and how you tackle the world around you. Makashi, of course, is being rather straightforward, but I find if you look into it, you realize they're very mobile. They move themselves to ground where they can be in control of where their opponents can come from. For example, an Ataru user can quickly wear themselves out, but they can attack from multiple angles. They're very well-rounded in attack, like getting out there, making the points, but they're not very strong in defending their own points. Stuff like that. So, and thank you all for watching and attending. I hope you guys took something away from this class. This was fun. This was a fun one to make. Of course, I use Prezi because Prezi's fun and pretty and looks better than PowerPoint with a lot less effort. So this has been Form 5, incorporating Jemso into Jedi Realism. Of course, you can apply all these questions to any form in Jedi like in the fictional Jedi, and be like, how can I incorporate these lessons into yourself? I got through that very quickly. Before we go, just plugging my book. I did get permission. Just released literally today, like today, yesterday, pre-orders, stuff like that. It's out now. I have my copies. So cool. Makes me happy. This is all those lovely posts that people liked seeing for so long, all finally put together in one place. So you can go, you can study, you can take notes. I've included a lot of wide margins around it, so you can add all your own notes wherever you want.
See, you can write in books.
You can write in this book. This is a study book. I'm not. This isn't a gospel or anything. This is for you to look through, find wisdom that you like, and add to it by yourself. It's also on Kindle, if that garners your interest. Otherwise, thank you all for watching. This was a fun class to prepare, so I'm hoping you guys enjoyed it. I want to close out. There we go.